Here, the heroes of Drive, the director Nicolas Winding Refn, Ryan Gosling, a sort of superhero, and it's great to see an editor with us in Cannes because they're rarely here, they're rarely seen. You don't see them in the press conferences, you don't see them on the steps, on the red carpet. So great, thank you very much, Matt Newman, for coming along. Ryan Gosling, the first question I've got for you is, working with, finding a character like this, a hero character, a bit like Steve McQueen in the old days, it must be great for an actor, no? I mean, because there's less roles like this now.
Yeah, it was nice because it was because I think I only say 5 things in the movie. So every morning we would go through and sort of cut out the dialogue and try and say only what was absolutely necessary. So it was nice to sort of just not feel the pressure to have to tell the story because it's such a great team. They'll tell the story and you just have to kind of disappear into your character's world.
Yes, disappearing into the character's world. I mean, when you don't speak much, I mean, it's really, really sort of internalized. How do you create this internalization?
Well, Nicky helped me a lot. He directed me to do it, so that's a good question for him. How do you create the internalization?
Nicolas.
I would create it by when you work with a great actor like Ryan and a pal, you just hug him and you say, go with God, and then you leave him to do that. And the way we work together, Ryan and I, it's a bit like we're in a relationship, and we have very similar sensibilities, we discovered. And so it was very easy for us to communicate without words. It's like how you communicate with your mother or your wife. And that was the process. Less is more, and none is everything. So let's try that approach.
Yes, and you can see it worked between the two of you. So it's an action film, but without too much, shoulder camera and stuff, and as you've maybe done, but before. So why did you make this choice? But I mean, it's great to see.
Some years ago, I started reading Grimm's fairy tales for my daughter. And when Ryan gave me the opportunity to make this film with him, my idea was to make it like a fairy tale. But that would mean that it shouldn't be into naturalistic senses. It should be more in the hyperrealism. And the approach was to make the film larger than life, even though it was set in a very naturalistic Los Angeles. But in a way, it was all much more like a fairy tale, because there are almost no people in the movie except the characters. And they live in this anonymous city of automobiles that you only hear but you never see. And that was very interesting for us and for me and Ryan to kind of indulge ourselves into. And Matt, who we've been working on 3 movies now together, and actually 4, because we started on Miss Marple in England, where I didn't have any money, and I needed to make some money, and I made Miss Marple, and I met Matt, and we have also very similar sensibilities, and he's very obsessive like I am, to the degree where if we start to try things out, we continue until we figure out what doesn't work. So, and the way that we would make the film was that after Ryan and I would completely, we wanted to make this book, and Haas Zamini, who was adapting it, we would get together at my house, and then we would just construct it out of Haas's linear storytelling, and then we would go make it, and then at night we would go with Matt and cut the movie together, and it was a very collaborative effort.
So Matt, so the edit was done bit by bit as it was being shot. What were the priorities for you in relation to the film?
With the mic, please.
To always follow what Ryan was doing, and to I don't know, difficult to answer that question. I'm always extremely happy when I see Nick's rushes because they're always not what I expect. So it's always, as the first viewer for the film, I'm usually the first one to just be like bowled over by it. And I think these guys just did such great work that it's always just a pleasure for me to sit there and just put it I had fun with it. I can't say anything else other than it was always, when you put the pieces together and you suddenly see it jump out at you, it's not work. It's like play. And I really had the feeling that these guys were enjoying playing and having fun with the film and being bold. And it's just go with them, follow, go down that road. And that's what it was like. It was a great experience, I have to say.
Yeah, I'm sure it was, you know, and we have a great pleasure as well as in the audience, you know. Ryan Gosling, are you surprised sometimes by the editor's choice, you know, the choice of the shots? Maybe it doesn't correspond to a shot that you preferred, perhaps, or a take that you liked. I mean, you know, did you intervene in any way in the cut?
I would come by and bribe Matt with candy, but we would, you know, I think this film was unique for me because the whole experience was we were either watching movies or we were making a movie or we were cutting the movie or we were driving around at night listening to music and thinking about the movie. So it all just kind of blended into one another, and somehow I think that the experience that we were having while making the film is kind of the experience of watching the film.
I just wanted to say, Nicolas is very, very good at creating a family feeling with all his collaborators, and that's very much what it felt like doing this film. I mean, I was cutting a movie in the den in his house, and his kids were running around, and it's this very great feeling of everybody being in the same boat and pulling on the same ship, and it's like a family.
And in a way, the movie then starts to dictate itself, you know. Because when you make a movie, it's all about this figuring out what it's not. It's like a discovery. It's like painting a picture, and at one point the film starts to dictate itself, you know. And when we were making scenes, if we were ever in doubt, we let's just shoot his back, because that was like the ultimate enigma. And it was the balance, you know.
There's a really good shot from behind with a jacket and the scorpion that's on the jacket, on Ryan Gosling's jacket. It's an amazing shot. And you're laughing. Ryan Gosling, I wanted to know, in a film like this, do you sort of have a stylized way of acting? And if you did do that, how do you remain credible? I mean, how can you remain credible while nevertheless doing it stylistically in a way?
It's funny that you mentioned the scorpion, because the crew in Los Angeles we're so used to close-ups, you know, and that's the way that they tell stories, and Nicolas was always shooting the scorpion. All he wanted to do was shoot the scorpion. It was kind of like a joke on set that you know, oh yeah, and then we'll shoot the scorpion, and you know, that the shot list was basically all it said was scorpion. And it's so funny because everyone kind of teased him, and now that we've been at Cannes, it's all anybody wants to talk about is the scorpion. So I think, do you feel like you were right? Do you feel justified?
I feel that people didn't know, but now they do.
That you're a genius.
Well, ever since I was born, my mother has always told me whatever I did, I was a genius at. And that's very healthy, you know. And
do you think that you were a genius, or do you think your mother told you so many times that it became true?
Well, if Muhammad doesn't come to the mountain comes to Muhammad.
Spoken like a genius. Yeah.
Well, thank you for this philosophy lesson. And, So Ryan Gosling, you didn't answer my question about stylizing. I mean, you know, are you stylized in what you're doing? Do you find a sort of a very honed down, pure thing, you know, the toothpick and things like this? What's it like? I mean, can you be credible nevertheless? Because, I mean, you can always ask the question about credibility. Aren't I going over the top, or am I doing enough?
Well, I think as soon as Nicolas agreed to do the film, and well, actually, when we first met, we sat for a couple of hours, and I tried to talk to Nicolas, and I couldn't even get him to look at me. He was just staring straight ahead, and I've learned later that he was sick and high on American medication, but I couldn't get it. He just wasn't interested, and he seemed bored and wanted me to take him home because he can't drive. And so I agreed to take him home, and when we were driving home, it was like a bad date where you know it's not going well, and you got to still take the long ride home. And it was awkward, so I turned up the radio in the car just to fill the awkwardness. And REO Speedwagon, Can't Fight This Feeling Anymore, came on. And suddenly Nicolas started singing it at the top of his lungs. It was the only thing he said all night, and he had tears in his eyes. And he looked at me and he said, this is it, this is the movie. It's about a guy who drives around at night and listens to pop music. So after we had that, as a sort of a lighthouse in the storm, I just sort of, I was able to not really become, for me it was the most peaceful experience I've ever had making a film, because I didn't feel like I had to tell the story with my face. I knew that Nicolas was going to tell the story, and that my job was just to, you know, basically drive around at night by myself and listen to pop music, you know, and that Nicolas would do the rest.
Well, it's very surprising. A film called Drive, it talks about, you know, a car driver, a stunt driver, and the director can't drive. You know, and you don't drive, you can't drive. But in any case, you've driven your film wonderfully well, Nicolas Winding Refn. Thank you very much. Thank you once again. Thank you, Tom Newman. Thank you, Ryan Gosling.